Hello, everyone. So, in one of my last videos, I was talking about an interaction that I had with a young lady in a coffee shop. And as much as I love talking about myself, I'm hoping, what I'm hoping for when I'm expressing situations, experiences that I have. In my everyday life or things that I've learned from past experiences. What I'm hoping is that you will be able to connect the lessons, even some of the unspoken things in your own way, the lessons that you've learned, experiences that you have had, the kind of underlining things in which we can all kind of relate to. What I mean by that is, so for instance, we've all experienced where, I don't know, whether it's a supermarket, a store, just, any kind of public venue that we go to and somebody upsets us, or somebody is just nasty to us without reason, just like has an attitude that ends up to change our whole demeanor, our mood, even if we were in a very good mood that day. So where I kind of joked a little bit about how I just walked into this coffee shop and asked for a muffin, and here this girl was like being really aggressive and projecting her energy toward me. Um, yeah, I'm sharing a story, but what I'm really hoping for is that you would look at what even I might not have said, whether it's your own, whether you can gather your own experiences or lessons through what I'm saying that I may not have pointed out, or you can even understand and kind of hear the hidden expression in what my own lessons were and what I was feeling out about the situation. And whether you are a person that believes in, spiritual warfare or entity attachments, this is a practice basically that can work for anyone in a very beneficial way to um, take record of your daily life and the shifts in your own energy. Um, and this is one of the reasons that solitude can be such a gift, and it's so important for all of us, because when you sit with yourself and kind of go into a hermit mode, not only do you connect on a deeper level with God and with your higher self, but you learn yourself in a different way, that when you can kind of go within and find that peace and that joy just in silence, in your own solitude, you learn yourself in a way that when you go out into the world, any shift in that center that you've gathered for yourself, you can start to look at it as energy instead of identifying with it as you. Because when we have changes in our moods, it does help to detach. It even helps where self-blame can kind of get involved and allow you to be kind of hard on yourselves on how you maybe have behaved in a certain setting. Let's see if I can gather what I'm trying to say here. So in that video, I talked about how this girl was projecting her energy, how she seemed very angry, and just annoyed and aggressive toward me without reason. I was very calm. It didn't get to me for the majority of the time that I was there. I was also in a very good mood on my way there. I was singing and I was in great spirits. So when I changed toward the time that I was going to leave, I remember stating that I had a thought in my head. I had suddenly gotten angry, and this was either right before I had made eye contact with her or right after. Because most of the time that she was being kind of nasty, it was with body language and facial expressions and projection of energy. Um, and then it was slightly before or after we did make eye contact that my energy shifted. And I was able to notice that because I have become very aware of my own energy and my actions and my thought process and how that shifts when I go out into the world. So when I was on my way out of the store, I had become angry, and I joked about how I had this thought that I just wanted to swing the door open like dramatically and aggressively to show how upset I was. Um, and it was a thought process, of course, that I did not follow, but at the same time that I had that thought process, almost simultaneously or within maybe a second of one another, I had the thought of well, don't do that, you know. And I made a choice to not act in an aggressive manner. Now, you could look at those thoughts as I like to look at those thoughts as that girl had an entity attachment that was of low vibration, and somehow it transferred onto me. And when I had this aggression all of a sudden, now that the thought came into my mind of swinging the door open, that was actually this low vibrational entity trying to manipulate my energy and my thought process to act in an aggressive manner. Just as well, the thought of do not do that with it was a very stern thought, would be my guides, my angels telling me, you know, this is not the right action. Now, we all have free will, so I'm in the center of that, and I have a choice. So I can either choose to act aggressively, or I can find that center even in that moment, because I've practiced being in my own center, and hear the right way of thinking, and then exercise self-control. And that is how, you know, sitting in your own energy and learning your own energy, it is a practice, because it's how it would help you in your everyday life, or at least one of the ways, because there's many ways that it's beneficial to kind of find your center in solitude. But this is one of the ways, because we do all operate from free will, and sometimes we may be manipulated to do something that is very out of character, and ask ourselves later, why did I do that? You know, or I just blacked out. I got pissed off. You know, this woman, you know, she was nasty. She had no reason. So I gave her attitude back. And, you know, she changed my mood, you know, and we can make those excuses. But at the end of the day, it is our responsibility to be centered so that we have a fair shot at exercising our own free will. In that center, I was able, instead of just acting on aggression, which would have made me look crazy, to just swing the door open, and because maybe no one even noticed how rude she was being. But even if they did, I am not exercising self-control. And that's where you find that medium, that space, to not just react, but to take a moment for thought. And in that moment for thought, you can, just as you hear what I would consider to be that low vibrational entity trying to tell you to do one thing, you will hear the right way, and an angelic being, or your guides or your ancestors or the Holy Spirit, however you want to look at it, you will hear, or your higher self, but you will hear the right way to handle it as well. But you need to take that moment to recenter yourself. Whether you can find that in a breath, or you find that in your own space, which the more you practice to be in your own space, you can find that space in daily activity, even if you're thrown off guard. You just take that moment to breathe, and that moment of silence, where if I just reacted, the first thing that came in my mind was, I'm so angry, I want to throw this door open, or I'm not going to look at her because I'm going to, bite her head off. But those were the first thoughts. But when I sat and in my breath, ignoring those thoughts and listened, I was able to get back to my center. And this is all in a moment, to hear the right way, and then to exercise my free will. So we can use free will to do, either the bad or the good, but that aggression, sometimes it just helps to separate yourself and look at it from an energetic standpoint, and to view it as an energy attachment or an entity attachment, an energy shift, a mood shift. So you don't identify with it, that you identify with yourself in your space, in your safe space, and this is an outside energetic shift that you now have a choice to do A or B, to move right or left, to choose a higher vibrational action or a lower vibrational action. And that's how we exercise our free will in the proper manner, to where we aren't just acting as beings that have no self-control, right? We're just like acting out and just doing the first thing that comes to our head. We are not actually exercising free will. We are allowing low vibrational energies or entities to manipulate us to do their will, right? Because when I walked into this coffee shop, I was in a very good mood. I was really happy to get a blueberry muffin, and I saw this girl's energy and was a little puzzled by it, and why she was being so aggressive and acting as if she hated me and I was bothering her and my presence bothered her, but not identifying with her. I still stayed in my own center. And toward the end of the interaction, my energy then shifted, and it shifted. I could say it shifted to her frequency, but I wasn't on her frequency. I look at it as an energetic attachment that she had, an entity that was sitting on her and then got transferred onto me. Later, when I got back to my apartment, which is one of the reasons I say that, because I'm very self-aware and aware of, I practice to be aware of shifts in my energy. I realized that I was very angry. I was irritable. I was just not myself. And the only thing that had changed from when I was in a very happy mood until that current mood was that interaction in the coffee shop. Not only that, but I know myself that when I am angry, I know how I behave in my own anger. This was not an anger that I was familiar with. This was a very foreign feeling and anger and rage that didn't make sense. Okay, so I recognized that it was not my energy, and I was able to release that. And sometimes you can just release that by speaking. Now I even got sidetracked and sat in that energy for quite a while, where I talked about how the Holy Spirit was saying to me, why did you sit in that? Why, later, after waking up from a nightmare and just being completely just out of sorts. And I talk about in that video where, somebody might say, oh, so she's having discussions with the Holy Spirit, she's talking to herself, she's crazy. But like I said, I do believe that inner voice is my guides, is my ancestors, is the Holy Spirit. And when I have a thought, it's like a conversation, but it's like a thought in my mind. And I say, yeah, the Holy Spirit was saying to me, why did you sit? Like, was showing me kind of a recap of what happened and asking me, why did I sit in that energy? And when I played it out, it's almost as if, although I did not own it as my energy, I sat in it because sometimes habitually, as our energies change, we accept it as our own, even if we know that it's not. I sat there saying, why am I so angry? Why did my moods change? Nothing really happened. It wasn't a big deal that girl had an attitude. I deal with people with attitudes every day. Why did this upset me so much? And I sat there asking why, saying that this was not mine, but not releasing it. Not saying, this is not mine, I surrender it to the universe and I call my energy back. And so it does help to, and it is a daily practice, to kind of view things that happen in our everyday life as energy attachment, shifts in our energy, through energetic manipulation, through entity attachments. And I the way I'm looking at it anyway, I can see that as beneficial to any and everybody, even a person that doesn't believe in energy attachments, that doesn't believe that there are low vibrational entities that can attach themselves to you. Even a person that doesn't believe that, it doesn't hurt to practice this thought process, because what it does is it kind of, I'm losing my train of thought. It shifts your perspective, and it teaches you how to be in control of your perspective, of yourself, of your reactions, of your outer world, by being in control of your center, of your inner world. And so you don't have to believe in, entities to say, to use it as a method of separating yourself from the emotion, for practicing the art of detachment. So, it just makes it easier for me. I do believe in this. So it does, I'm going to, talk about it in the way that I see it and that I believe in it. Maybe you can find another way to detach. But the overall agenda is to practice the art of detachment in your everyday life, so that you do not take on the the energies of the outside world, so that you use your inner world to center and direct your outside world just by controlling your own energy shifts, if that makes sense. So when I talked about this interaction, I didn't go in depth and explain that this is the thought process I'm hoping that a lot of people would grasp, or that you may even find in my reactions in that lesson something that you went through, something that I didn't even see, that just from talking about it, you can kind of think and reach down and find your own lessons, find something else that I could have done in my story, or something that you could have in yours. Or maybe this situation will come up to you and you'll remember this story and you'll remember how you processed it, and you'll see that as an opportunity to handle it in the way that you process that you would. You can think about times where you gave in to that aggression and that anger and how it made you feel afterwards. How long you sat with it, not releasing it, not detaching it from who you are, but maybe even blaming yourself for acting in a way that was out of character, and being really hard on yourself, which gets in the way of self-love through understanding and forgiveness. When you harp on things that you've done that may have very well been other energies manipulating your own. And that's not to make an excuse for people's bad behavior, but it is to point out that there is always an opportunity to center yourself and exercise your free will to either act on that lower vibration or act on a higher vibration. So when I do talk about whatever I share, whatever stories I share, sometimes I won't stop and point out what the lessons are that I've found in this, or what I'm hoping that the collective will be able to gather from this story. I'm sharing it in the awareness that we are all connected, and that although our journeys are different and some of our experiences are very different, some of the lessons in there may be similar. And even there's so many lessons to learn from another person's lessons. Like, we offer a lot to one another. So it's taking that into consideration when I'm talking about experiences that I have, and also kind of taking you along on my own journey and trying to figure things out and trying to heal, and trying to connect and grow into and with my higher self, in hopes that this will motivate and inspire others to do the same in their own lives. And understanding that is something that we can all kind of come together on, is that those changes in our outside daily lives ultimately can be controlled by our own choices, our own free will, and practicing the exercise, or practicing the art of exercising free will through disconnecting with the entities or energies or mood shifts that we experience on a daily basis. And the key to doing that is in centering and finding yourself. And the way to do that is really practicing and sitting in your own energy and finding that time for that solitude, for healing, for introspection. Because the more that you do that, the more that when you are around other people, you don't take on their energies as your own. You'll start to notice this shift because it's so I can't find my words. When you are so used to being in your energy and you know what it feels like, the minute that that shifts, it will feel like an attack. And not to say, oh my gosh, I'm being attacked, but energetically, you're going to notice it. And that because it comes with self-awareness, not just about who you are, but about how you feel. You recognize your energy so well that you recognize immediately when a shift happens. And so you can look outward energetically at what has transpired to cause that shift in your thought process, in your feelings, in your emotions. Is it something outside that is actually being projected onto you? Is it something that, if you consider yourself to be a medium, that's outside that you may be absorbing? That now once you identify it, you can control it just by controlling your reaction and recalibrating your thought process. Therefore, like recalibrating your own perception. Our perception is ultimately it's an indicator. It's a way, a key to manifesting the changes that we want to see in our life. It starts with perception. I did write something that I wasn't ready to share, but just give me one moment. I'm going to see if I look at this may help me explain this. Let's see if I can explain what it is I'm trying to. Just bear with me for a few moments. Okay, so there was something that I began writing, and I wanted to. I'm trying to charge my phone. to see if I can pull up an angel number that came up. Oh boy, bear with me. I will gather my thoughts in a moment. Well, I hope it's charging. Don't think I have anything else. I was reading something that I wrote, and I wasn't going to share it because I wanted to tweak it a little bit. Just as the example that I used, I didn't think was the best. Anyway, when I was reading through it, I saw the angelic number 959 right on the second paragraph. And when I looked it up, like, something told me to stop what I was doing and look it up right away. And when I looked it up, it actually fit exactly what I was saying in that first paragraph. So I wanted to read it and then read what I pulled up with that number 959. And I may record another, I should have wrote it down, and I was actually told to write it down and didn't listen because I thought that I would have my phone to read it off of, but now I'm recording this video from my phone. So I was trying to use my other phone, which is dead. So anyway, we were talking about perception, and basically what I was trying to say was that it's a key to healing trauma. But because I didn't plan on reading this, I need to, or perception, or changing our perspective. So I used a pretty bad analogy, in my opinion, that I don't know if it could be triggering for anyone, and that's what I wanted to go back and change. But I'm going to read it anyway because it gives the kind of the gist of what I'm getting at, where although the analogy is pretty bad, I used sorry, you have no idea what I'm talking about. Let's see. I used amnesia as a form of trying to show how the change of perspective can alter our lives. Where something that you may be harping on, some trauma that you may have experienced, if you didn't have a memory of that, you would not allow it. It wouldn't be able to block you in life, in your forward movement, because that is what trauma does. Not only does it, it can cause depression if you live in the past and you're replaying trauma, but it also is like a doorway for low vibrational entities to shift our own energy to manipulate, or I would say manipulating our own energy. It's where we can say aura, but like our aura, what science recognizes as the electromagnetic field. when you have trauma that isn't healed, it kind of punctures the electromagnetic field, which is like that aura around us. Um, a lot of people consider our bodies or our spirit to be within our bodies. But I challenge you to try to think of our bodies being within our spirit, because our aura kind of projects around our body, encases it, and our electromagnetic field. It's a protective shield against spiritual energetic attacks, but also when there are holes and breaks in this shield, it can leave us open to, well, I could say energetic attacks, but even illness, which I believe kind of comes from lower vibrational entity attachments. It can start with the mind as well. I mean, we know stress is one of the number one causes of a lot of illnesses, right? And stress it develops within the mind, but it can become very physical and make a person physically ill, even terminally in some cases. So, just a second. See if this phone has enough juice to pull up this angel number. Okay, I think this is it. Okay, so I'm going to read what I have here, but please don't take it in like the literal sense, because I did intend to kind of make it better, and I haven't revised it at all. This was just trying to get thoughts down in basically just to get the idea across of the importance of shifting your perspective. So it starts: don't allow trauma to turn into a monster that you cannot control. Why give it so much credit, power, motion? Identify your trauma and retain control. And that's when 959 pulled up or popped up, and I pulled it up as it says. The angel number 959 embodies the message of spiritual growth through letting go of the past and embracing change for personal liberation. It was exactly what I was trying to talk about. So I just thought, wow, that popped up for a reason. And then I continue, yes, it happened, but it lives within your mind. Within your mind. Become the master of your own mind. Trauma doesn't get to exist outside of your mind unless you give it permission to do so. Change your perception. Free yourself. If, God forbid, there were an accident causing amnesia, and the things you have been chained to no longer had a face, You would either be free to make new memories from a clean slate, or you would obsess over the lost memories, creating new trauma. Imagine the choice was the former. Imagine you took that clean slate and created a life that most only ever dream of. Now imagine in this new life, one day, all your traumatic memories from the past were to return. Would you allow these memories to have any bearing on your new and improved life? My guess is no. It would all be an irrelevant part of a past that seemed nothing more than a distant memory once placed in competition with this new life of bliss. I wrote 1010 in there. I'm not going to pull it up, but you can. I don't know if it was for that, or I might have thought about a whole other thing. What if I told you that without that amnesia, you would never make it to that same bliss until facing that trauma from a place of acceptance, forgiveness, and releasing it, thus having the same effect on your life? Now you can reach that same bliss without the amnesia, just by shifting your perspective and seeing trauma for what it is, nothing more than a distant memory. Let it be something you've grown from and no longer have use for, because it cannot go where you are meant to grow. So like I said, I don't like the whole amnesia reference. And I was thinking about that, and I came up with a whole other route that was much better and more fitting, but I did not record that. Did I? Let me see. Okay. I'm taking a moment to see if I can remember. The whole thing was perspective. And I'm still, like, when I channel, I had a really great channel for this. And I didn't record it, but I'm gonna try to see if anything comes to me now, which is why I'm being silent. I might have to just see if I can go on something else. Okay, so taking out the amnesia, though, the whole point is really, the focus is on perspective, and it was just, in my opinion, just not the best way. I was just trying to get an idea down, but not the best way in explaining that, but a way that you can kind of understand the gist. So, it's really about recalibrating your mind. Usually a way to do that is finding a lesson that you've learned in said traumatic event acknowledging that that lesson is a gift, it's something to be grateful for, especially, you know, you may feel like fragmented due to some of the things that have happened to you. But you've survived something that will allow you to live a wiser and stronger life of awareness if you allow yourself to release the trauma and absorb the lesson. There's a misconception about baggage where it's like the older we get, the things that we've gone through, maybe people will consider it baggage. And that's not accurate. It can be if there is piled up trauma that has not been dealt with, that hasn't been faced, that hasn't been processed, that hasn't, it comes with an understanding, with a forgiveness, with a with a gentler approach, especially where self-blame comes in, because that just, it adds more burden on you when you don't forgive yourself for choices that you made when you didn't know better. And I actually heard that, or either a card or I heard it, I forgive myself for the choices that I made when I didn't know better. And I embrace with gratitude the lessons that I have learned from said choices. That alone is a shift in perspective. It's a way to healing that trauma. You've healed a lot just by saying that, allowing yourself to process that, the words, not just saying the words, but processing the thought behind it, and then embracing that within your heart, feeling it. The emotion that you have behind that understanding, that forgiveness that you embrace. And then the gratitude, understanding that you have learned a lesson and you've survived. What if later down the line you didn't have that lesson? Something else could happen that may be something you wouldn't survive without that lesson. And especially when you believe in divine guidance and protection, you would understand that our lessons are meant to mold us into the people, I could say the people that we are going to become, but in a lot of ways I feel the people that we already are. I feel like the higher self that we already are. Sometimes depending on the environment in which you were raised in, the environment around you, it does mold you, and it can chip away at your self-esteem, you know, your confidence. You're really chipping away at that electromagnetic field, that outward protection, just due to our environment and the people that surround us and the things that we're taught. And then we get to a place in our life where a lot of people are adults that are just walking around as those broken children that never healed. And there has to be a place as an adult that you allow yourself to sit with yourself and to learn yourself and to face those traumas for the purpose of healing them, so that you don't focus the blame. Now, you can put the blame as a child, seeing what was done, what you didn't know, where you were supposed to be protected and wasn't. Um, it's a healthy thing to look at the honesty behind it, the truth behind it, but not from a condemning standpoint, but from a forgiving standpoint for yourself, to understand that where this began was not your fault. But where you are now, your choices on where you decide to go is your fault. It's your intent, what you're going to intend to do, how you're going to use this past. Now you have the choice to heal from it, recognizing that there is healing that needs to be done, and recognizing that this is a point of your life where you did not know better, and now you have the capacity to forgive yourself for the choices that you made when you didn't know better, and be grateful for the lessons that you have learned to now be able to see from a different perspective and know better. A lot of times, and out of thoughtfulness, if I'm saying anything, I try to watch my words, in wanting to be careful not to trigger anyone, right? Because triggers can be harsh, and it is my intention to heal and not to cause, I guess with triggers we can relive our pain, our trauma, which can be a detriment. But I changed my perspective on that, because I learned that triggers are a tell. They're a blueprint to healing. I wrote, don't run from your triggers. They are showing you what needs to heal. They're your own personal guide to the healing that your soul needs. So with the holding that idea of changing, shifting your perspective, when, let's say, something triggers you, and that's going to be different for everyone. I mean, and again, you know, I'm speaking how I feel, and I want to be very cautious and considerate of where people can be on their individual journeys. But I can use like an addiction that maybe someone has been maybe has saw the need to heal from, or tried to heal from. Perhaps a lot of times with healing there can be like a relapse. So if you had an addiction or have an addiction that you've been healing from, those triggers can be very scary. So much so that you do everything to avoid them. And I'm not a doctor, so I want to be very careful with what I'm saying, and highlight that this is entertainment purposes, but I'm hoping that people will find healing from this. Yeah, you can, whenever, changing the perspective, shifting the perspective, where a trigger is seen to be something negative. Now, I'm not saying go put yourself out there to get triggered, but I am saying we do have to live in the world and exist in it. And part of that experience, the universe, I believe, gives us scenarios sometimes that are meant to trigger us, to show us where healing needs to be done. So you can go one way and feel like you've healed from something, and then it's not until you get that trigger that you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm back to square one. I've done nothing. And that's not the way to look at it. You can look at that trigger as a gift. You look at it with favor, because when you have that trigger and you have that initial, that trauma comes up, almost like you're ready to relive it, you identify in your mind that this is a trigger. Oh no, wait, triggers are not bad. This is an opportunity for healing. This is showing me that there is still something that needs to be released. And that is a way that we can look into ourselves, where things can go hidden. And sometimes we can't even, we walk blind to self, to where we don't even know where to start where shadow work is concerned. A lot of times we don't even know our own, I didn't even realize how heavily I was I don't want to say victim, but I was made victim to narcissistic abuse from a very young age. And I didn't even see that. And it was right under my nose. And I couldn't understand how I kept getting exposed to narcissistic people. And I don't use that word lightly. Textbook narcissistic people, to points where my own mortality was threatened, right? It's a very dangerous thing, because I was raised with the narcissism from a very narcissistic person, and I was taught not to have boundaries. Boundaries are not allowed around a narcissist, and when you're a child that grows in that environment, you don't even realize, the importance of boundaries. If you don't see it, you don't understand. And now if you're a loving person that's an empath, and you're taught to be submissive to the world outside of you, and now you're being submissive with an immense amount of love to give, you are in mortal danger. And you're a magnet for horrible, monstrous people that you have been taught to be submissive to, and you're not even identifying that it was because you yourself was raised. It took me a very long time to find the root. And when I found it, it changed my perspective and my life. And it was a tremendous amount of healing for me. And then just recently, I studied years ago about, I had looked up traits of narcissistic people, and because I recognized that it was something that was being attracted in my life, and I couldn't understand how it was that I was attracting it. And it was something to where I could recognize these traits in people, but I didn't recognize the trait in myself to lack boundaries. And it was never that I lacked self-love. It was that I didn't know how to love myself properly, because I lacked the capacity to, and the necessity, seeing how important and imperative it was to have boundaries. And that sounds so ridiculous for a person that is raised with love. You don't even have to be raised by an awakened parent to receive the love, and where you are lifted and your gifts and your talents are celebrated from a young age. And so you build a level of self-confidence and self-awareness, to where those boundaries just become natural because you feel when your electromagnetic field is threatened, the boundaries just come up because you were raised with a foundation of self-worth and self-love to an extent where it is a natural reaction. So a person like that might look at a adult that said, I didn't know about boundaries, and you look like, are you a fucking idiot? What do you mean you don't know about boundaries? And really, this person went through such abuse and neglect, and you don't know, and they themselves may not even know it yet to express it to you, that this is why they didn't have role models. They didn't have anyone to teach them. On the contrary, they had people teaching them not to love themselves, that they didn't have a voice. People that saw a gift in them, that saw the love in them, that gave them the power and the capability to manifest. And those people did not want them to see that in themselves. And so the lack of boundaries was drilled into said individual, and now they're an adult and they can't find the root of the cause of why certain horrific things keep replaying in their life. And they have triggers. And these triggers may be the universe trying to show them to show them how to reconnect with where this began so that they can see the root cause, and then they can begin to heal from that. And even with the healing journey that I've been on, and when I started it, it really was like about 25 years ago, and it's been just gradual, but over the last 10 years has like propelled me into an awakening that began only about a year and a half ago. So very recently, like just a few weeks ago, I remember that I had, studied and read about and looked up, traits of narcissists, trying to understand and learn everything that I could to make the necessary changes within my life. And it was only recent that something just popped up on my feed on YouTube, which was 2 videos on the traits of an individual that has undergone narcissistic abuse. And it never occurred to me to look that up. But I feel like Spirit wanted me to see this while I've been on this healing journey for quite a while. I had never considered myself, not wanting to consider myself a victim. It never occurred to me to see what are the traits of a victim of narcissism, of narcissistic abuse. So I pulled up the videos, and one gave about a dozen traits and another gave maybe like 10, and every single one of, say, those 22 traits, I mean, it magnified things about my personality, and it was jaw-dropping because it allowed me to see myself in a softer way. Although I've been on this journey of self-love, and forgiving myself as well as others for, things that have happened, it didn't allow me to see myself as a victim, but it allowed me to see myself in a way that it definitely shifted my perspective even more, and it definitely aided to my healing journey. And I was very grateful for something so simple, to just watch these videos and learn something of myself. I was aware that I was victim to narcissistic abuse. I was very aware of that. But to see a list of personality traits that a person takes on as a result of this abuse, and to realize that I identify not with a few things, not with 6 or 7 things, but with every trait that was listed. It was jaw-dropping. And it allowed me even more compassion and understanding and forgiveness for myself and the choices that I made that I was not happy with. Even things that I've grown from and I've healed from, it took me back and it allowed me a gentler view of myself. One of even more compassion and even for others, and it broadened my perspective in the way to understand that you can look at other people and be like, what's wrong with this person? Where a lot of people, treated me so badly. And I did have a martyr mentality, and one that I'm still trying to work out of, because it became a second nature. And, to be submissive to people that you have no reason to be submissive to. They are not God in your life. They offer you nothing. And you can choose to love and to respect others as you love and respect yourself. But when you are submissive to people, it tells them in a backhanded way that you are less than them, that you are somehow unworthy, and that is fucking bullshit. And I want people to know, I want people to catch themselves and to love themselves enough to set those boundaries and to learn about themselves, and to learn that while people are stomping them in the ground, these are broken, fragmented people. And that they themselves owe it to themselves to learn where these unrealistic identity views that they have developed began. Because I never lacked self-love. I never thought of myself as less than. But I did treat others. I saw lack of self-esteem in others, and I naturally wanted to lift them up. I wanted them to see the worth that I saw in them. I wanted them to love themselves. And sometimes I did dim my light, and sometimes I did have a more submissive approach, but I was taught that that was love, to be submissive, right? But they looked at me as a person that didn't love myself. And they looked at me as a person that could be disrespected, a person that could be treated like a doormat, a person that could be deceived, and shame not on me, on them. Because they themselves were fragmented people, and they lacked the capacity to go within, to look at themselves, to look at their flaws, and to heal from those flaws, and to embrace and lift themselves. They themselves chased people that did not love them, that did not have respect for them, and put those people on a pedestal, to the point where when they had love staring them in the face, they didn't recognize it because they lacked self-love. I lacked the knowledge of boundaries, of how to love myself properly. So while these same people looked at me as gullible, naive, in some ways I was. I needed the lessons to learn how not to be, how not to love so openly and so freely to people that were undeserving. But be careful who you look at as naive or gullible, because that person may not speak their mind of how much they're processing in the silence while you beat them into the dirt. I processed everything. I saw people right through them. While they disrespected me and thought that I didn't have a mind, that I didn't have common sense. The whole time I'm trying to understand, and I'm studying people and trying to understand, why are they behaving this way to a person? Even when I saw why, it was just, I could go on forever about it, but my whole purpose is to explain back to triggers and not having to look at those triggers as a thing to be afraid of, a thing to run from. Change your perspective when you get those triggers and look at it as an opportunity to heal. It's a steal. It's giving you a blueprint to your healing journey. And all you have to do is accept it. When I began my healing journey, I started to see things for what they were. The fire, metaphorically, they talk about the phoenix rising from the ashes and about fire being spiritually cleansing. Listen, that is right on, all of it. The first year, I was just in a daze. I was numb. I didn't love, I didn't hate, I didn't have anger. I maybe had peace, but I was just like in shock for a whole year, trying to understand, because I knew there were things I knew. I knew there was something spiritual happening because I had had a premonition of the fire. And in that premonition, I saw some of the people involved. Other things happened to reveal some of the other people's involved. As time progressed, I kept getting pieces of the puzzle. This was all spiritual. So I'm waiting, and I'm open to receiving, and I'm very still. I didn't have a choice. Everything that I had ever wanted, everything I had ever dreamed of, everything I had ever worked toward. I watched everything I built burn to the ground. I watched people rob me, the insurance rob me and then go bankrupt. I watched everything I'd worked for being drugged from under me. And then all the people that I thought loved me being nowhere to be found. And then while trying to build myself, the only time I heard from people was like they were coming back in just to pull the rug from under me again. If I had any positivity, by the time I got off the phone with them, I was completely broken and lost again. If I broke down crying and they saw that I was broken and lost, they seemed satisfied and then began talking about themselves happily as if nothing. I realized that the whole world and the way that I saw it was completely distorted, and that all the people that I had in my life that I thought were people that I had in my life were really non-existent. And I saw that I was under this illusion my whole life, thinking I had this big family, thinking that I was surrounded by friends and a community, and I had this career. And I realized that I was under this illusion. I had no one. None of these people had my best interest at heart. All of these people, almost, just about, majority, was waiting and preying on my downfall and celebrating my pain, my loss. This fire did cleanse me. I used to say, I've always believed in God. I've always felt God's presence in my life. And that's why I say that I was always spiritual, even though I was raised religious. But I used to say that only God can take tragedy and turn it into a blessing. And I said that without even, I believed it, but I didn't really know how only God can take tragedy and turn it into a blessing. I didn't know until I experienced tragedy and from it found a blessing. Gratitude that I would never have to be living completely blind to the world around me. Gratitude because I used to fantasize about just going off on my own and thinking that it was selfish, because how lucky was I, no matter what, people are all flawed, but how lucky was I to have a big family and not be alone in the world. Whole time I was fucking alone in the world. But worse off than actually being alone, because alone spirit can guide and carry me and bless me with these people. Any blessings that came into my life, they were just waiting to rip from under me. My God, I love education. And I have not even been able to go to school for the last 10 years, where it's been such a desire because of all the obstacles and misery that was planted in my life by people that I actually thought loved and cared for me, people that were supposed to nurture me, friends, relationships that I took into my heart and lifted every chance I got while they beat me into the ground. We need to wake up as a collective and realize that everything that we want and desire, it starts within us. It starts with self-love. Because when you love yourself truly and you work at it, because it takes work, and you do the work, no matter how scary, to learn yourself. That self-love, that self-awareness connects you directly with God and your highest self. That self-love fills your cup in a way that no one outside can do. And then the people deserving of your love, you have more to give. An endless amount to share. Because you know how to go back to source and keep refilling your cup. And now when energetic vampires come at you, or people take from you, you feel it. It pierces your soul to a way that you cannot tolerate it. You will not be able to tolerate lower vibrational people in the way that you could before. And it's not to say that you are better than another person. It's to say that you have healed your soul to a level that you cannot tolerate the low vibration. It is taking, it is robbing, you feel it sucking your energy, your life force. You no longer have to be aware of narcissism or wonder who is for you and who is against you, because when you sit with yourself long enough and you trust in God, the moment that your spirit is under attack, the moment that you are with somebody that is taking from, it's like you can't breathe. Your body will tell you everything that you need to know. And you have to practice. Because even when your body tells you that, you might go back to that lack mindset way, or go back to that self-doubt. Or you have to start asking yourself the question, not realizing what you're asking, where you're like, can I trust this person? The moment that you have to ask yourself that twice, I say the answer is no. I say that you're searching for an answer that your body is already telling you. And that's just something that when you keep at it, at that work, at finding those triggers and asking yourself, well, how do I feel when this happened? Why is this triggering me? Where is the root of this? And you know what the great thing is? When you get stuck and you can't find it, and you pray and ask God to help you heal this, He will either release it from you or He will show you. He will give you the answer. Our triggers are a tell, a blueprint to our healing journey. Don't run from your triggers. They are showing you what needs to heal as your own personal guide. Look at it with excitement. That initial trigger is gonna be scary, and it still is for me. I'm not speaking like I'm all healed. Every single day, I'm still on this journey. And some days I fall off, and then I forgive myself. And I find the lesson, and then I'm grateful that I learned that lesson and can still stand with it and move forward every single day. And when it actually became fun, and that's why I want to share this with you. It's not always fun, but I got excited when I came to this realization because something had triggered me. And when I'm sharing this with you guys, you are helping me heal, because reaching out, and for one thing, I'm spending more time on things that I had neglected for purpose of this channel and being able to share it with others. And it's healing me, it's helping me, because a lot of these words, a lot of the things, I believe it comes from Spirit, that Spirit is giving me these downloads to share. And I used to just speak them, but never record them. And then I wasn't even benefiting from them. I got excited because I was recording this and something triggered me, and then I remembered it's a blueprint. And the first initial feeling I felt was fear, and that I want to run from this. And then when I told myself, oh wait, this is a blueprint, this is a tell, this is a way to raising your vibration, I got excited. Because now I've had a taste through that awakening of what it feels like when you raise your vibration. And oh my goodness, it is definitely worth the struggle. It's worth the work. High on Life is actually a real thing. I had no idea. So I want to make a note that that's something I want to talk to you about, is when I went within and started to heal. So yeah, I had this trigger, and then I remembered it was a blueprint, and I shifted it, because now I said, oh no, I'm gonna search for this. And I got excited because I sit there and my vibration over the last year, it's gone in and out, which is natural, but sometimes I kind of plateau, and I feel not so much that I'm falling back into old habits, but that it might be time for introspection too. I can be hard on myself, but sometimes I feel like there's just, what's the next step? What do I do now, right? So sometimes I get to a place where I'm like, okay, well, now what? And so when this trigger came along, that first feeling was to run from it and fear, and even a little bit of disappointment, because I was like, oh man, it's such a negative feeling, you know? And I'm like, here I am thinking I'm doing all this self work, and oh my gosh, I feel gutted right now. And then I was like, no, 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 this is a trigger. It's a blueprint. You were like, what now? Well, look, this is a gift. Now you know what to work on. And then I got to work. And it's a daily thing. And so now I look out for those triggers. And I know that when they hit, they're going to be scary, but then I know that I know how to shift my perspective and turn that fear into excitement and gratitude, and then get to work. So I want to share something with you. When I went off on the rant about the fire, I should have a pen right here. Oh, no, I do. So I want to write, there's two things I want to say. Give me 1 second. So the fire, I said the fire, and okay. I want to talk about a few of the first things. Okay, so on a side note, I want to just say something about before the fire happened also, because there were a lot of things spiritually going on. I could do like a whole video of hours just giving this spiritual aspect, and then I could do like probably something that would take several videos of several hours expressing what was actually going on in the 3D world and how I was processing it all. But one of these things that happened not long before the fire was set to my home, while I slept in bed, it was meant to actually burn me alive. And because I know of the dark arts that were involved, it was meant for me to be a blood sacrifice. And that wickedness that was attached to it was part of even understanding who I am as a seer. As you know, I knew I was a healer before I knew I was a seer. I didn't know, I'd never looked up what clairvoyance was. So the minute that I did, I knew, I understood. But it's a part of that wickedness that I would not have survived without God. Like seeing, having the premonition of the fire in my dream and seeing the things that I've seen, it made me very aware there was something spiritual happening. I remember when I looked at my house in flames and then I looked at nothing but ash afterward. I remember before thinking about the loss, I thought about God, because I remembered the vision that he gave me. So I knew that he was doing something, and I also knew that he spared my life, and I didn't know anything else. So like I said, that whole year that I was just a zombie, I was just in a daze, but I was absorbing so much information. And it brought me to a place where I said, or actually I feel like Spirit said to me, you know, do you see that, you know, the people that you have around you? Because I questioned it one day. I was like, wait a minute. I'm always beating myself up. And I was like, but God wouldn't want me to be in poverty. I know my heart. I know that God has been with me my whole life. I know the thoughts that I have in my mind for others. I know that I'm exactly the kind of person that, given the opportunity, would want to give, to heal, to lift. So I am not cursed. I'm not being punished by God. And, I saw that, and I was very aware for so many years that there was a extensive amount of black magic, meaning mind control, and many things that were being done to me. I knew it. I think as a medium, you can't not know it. When I was a teenager, I didn't know, but within my 20s, I knew. I mean, I just didn't know where it was coming from. And it was coming from several places, but there was the root, right? And it was the root that I couldn't see. And then everything else fell into place when I was able to see that root. But when I made this connection, Spirit said to me, like, now do you see, like, that about what you are surrounding yourself with? And then it was like I was shown, or I had the thought process, just a lot of information was coming to me, and I saw that love was never a thing I lacked within me. I had so much love. I was constantly pouring out to all these people around me, but I never got any back, not even a kind word. I never expected much of people either. So it went unnoticed for so long, for most of my life. But any opportunity that I saw to lift a person, I did it as a reflex. So I saw that, and in seeing that in my mind, when all this is coming to me, Spirit could have said it to me. I could have, it all kind of happened simultaneously, like a whole lot of a flow of information as I just stood there like a deer in headlights, just a whole lot of information. And I saw that it was like I said to myself, listen, or Spirit said to me, but listen, you don't lack the capacity to love. You are surrounded by people that lack the capacity to love because they are broken and unhealed. If you let this destroy you, you will become broken and unhealed. You will then lack the capacity to love. And it was like, God didn't put you here to lack the capacity to love. You've been an endless source of love for the people and the world around you with little to nothing to give. You've been giving yourself, your heart. And you can't even get a kind word from all these people that you pour all this love out to. It's time to start putting all that love that you have, clearly, right? It's not lacking. So you have it. Pour it back into yourself. That's what I heard. That's what Spirit said to me. That's what I saw. That's what I felt. It's time to pour it back into yourself. And then I decided that I was going to go on the journey to do that. And that I was going on that journey and I was letting go of the past. If it ended me on the street, if it ended me to my death, then that was how I was choosing to die. I decided at that moment that I was going to nurture myself and I was going to take back all that was taken from me. And I was going to give it to myself through healing, through self-love. And it was the best decision that I ever made in my entire life. So when I decided that, I'm going to tell you where I started. One second. But before I tell you where I started, I do want to share with you one of those. I keep going off track. I want to share with you one of those experiences that I had in the flood of spiritual experiences that I was getting. One of them, before the fire, I had come home from work one day, and this was when I was on an earlier shift. So when I came home, it was still daylight. And my entire property, my entire house, I mean, the rooftop, the trees, the lawn, the grass, the porch, it was covered in crows. I had never seen so many crows. And when I say my home, my property was just bathed in crows, it was a sight to see. And the first thing I thought, so now this is while I'm going through an excessive amount of bullying, targeted harassment, slander on my job, in my career, right? I've never gone through anything like this in my life. And these were adults that, were just like coming for me, man. And I did nothing. I did nothing to warrant it. And I was just kind of stunned and every day just trying to survive through it. So that, plus the health issues that I had, that I also do think was related to the black magic that was being done on me. I don't even think I can call it. This was like hex upon hex. I mean, heavy voodoo. I mean, paying people. I mean, the vicious amount of spell work that was done on me was, I couldn't have survived it without God. And, I had developed health issues that were stress related. And I do definitely feel that was connected. Especially that it was like attacking my adrenal gland, which is associated, they're on the kidneys, and that's associated with the sacral chakra. But there was also so much root work, and like with the sacral and the solar plexus, like that's your stability, your foundation, your self-worth, your safety, the capacity to feel safe. And here the adrenal glands, known as like they give off like that fight or flight, like adrenaline hormone. And this is what I was suffering from, having these attacks it was life-threatening. Like this was something that you need these hormones, these chemicals to live. And so everything was just out of balance. And it definitely makes sense that with what I was going through, both in the physical, the harassment that I was going through on the job, plus the spiritual attack that I was under, it makes sense that was connected to the health issues that I was having, especially when I know that it was specifically, it was all my chakras, but root work and sacral and solar plexus, because that's a big part of how you manifest. But as well, the heart, because the capacity to love, everything's connected, and you can't manifest without love. And I was such a lover that my heart was always being attacked. It was like orchestrated to break my heart. And that was a big thing I never understood. So everything just kind of, when I came into awareness of so many things, everything fit into place in a way that, I mean, I cannot tell you in a way that you'll understand without having experienced an awakening yourself, and the way that God works magic in the life of a person. And it's intimate with each individual. So anyway, I'm going through all of this, and the little bit of time that I have for myself is the time that I have in my home, when I go home before, that little space of time, window of time, before going to sleep. It was like my sanctuary, right? And that's part of also why they burnt it down. But so I didn't know at the time that crows are actually messengers for seers. But I mean, they can be messengers for anyone, whether you consider yourself to be a seer or not. If you know this fact, right? If you have this information, like education, awareness, you don't have to be a seer to know like what you'd be looking at now if you see these crows, right? So at the time I didn't know, but see, intuitively I was on point without being on point, because when I saw the crows, like, okay, there was a state of like awe, like, oh my God, right? But like dread, because the first thing I'm thinking is, black magic, hex, curse, obia, death magic, or I should say unalive magic, excuse me. I'm looking at my roof covered in black crows and birds, and my lawn and the trees on my property and all over my property, right? I don't know if you can just imagine the state of like the wow factor that gives. And I was so drained and I was so exhausted from what I was going through at work and with my own health, that when I saw it, like, I had that feeling of dread. I processed all those things. I thought of it as like a bad omen, right? And then I just shook my head and I went inside my house, because I couldn't handle. I literally at that time I could not handle anymore. So I had that moment of, oh my God. And then I kind of just shook my head and went into my home that was drenched in black birds. And I probably just put the TV on and poured myself a glass of wine, because that was how I used to unwind, with maybe a couple of hours before I would go to bed. I was doing a lot of overtime when I could. It was a very difficult time for me. So I wasn't able to process it. Now looking back, I thought of them as a bad omen, but now obviously I look at it differently. They are messengers of a bad omen. What I saw, the hex, the curse, the spell work, they were there to tell me that this was being done to me. I saw them as the bad omen, but they were actually there to carry me the message that there were people out for my soul, my mortality, right? So they were messengers to tell me that there was danger that was on my house, metaphorically, physically, spiritually. Like, this is what they brought that message, and I got the message. I viewed it in the wrong way. And now the thing is, the way that I viewed it, if I would have seen something like this on the house of a neighbor, I would myself have thought that that person was in the dark arts. I would think that person was cursed. I would think that that curse was probably brought on to themselves by themselves for doing dark stuff, right? That is what I would think before having the knowledge that I have. But seeing that and knowing that I was a target, I was a victim, knowing that I never did anything like that. In fact, I'm more now would seem that way, because back then I didn't read tarot. Now I'm more embracing my spirituality with confidence because of what's been done to me. But one of the rumors and the slander back then was that I was dabbling in black arts and witchcraft, which I absolutely was not. Never have in my life, never would in this life or any other. Okay? it goes against everything that is me, everything that I believe, and my soul. I would never do it. The karma that I believe, everything, the God that I believe in, the highest vibration of love, it goes against everything that I believe, right? Everything that makes me who I am. So without knowing me, though, no one would really know this. And there were rumors that were being spread about me that I was dabbling in these things, right? So I don't know if Spirit showed me or it dawned on me. Spirit probably showed me, because when I took the look, that initial look at my property covered in crows, obviously I know I hadn't done anything to be cursed to warrant that. So if this was a curse, it was someone that was attacking me through divination, right? So what Spirit showed me was also how we judge one another, not having a clue about what is and what's really happening. Because it also showed me that while I knew there were several rumors, there's a lot I don't know. Some of these rumors I do know without knowing the rumors themselves were horrific and dangerous things, because people were being very violent to me, like physically aggressive to me. So whatever these rumors were, they were the kind of rumors that instill hate crimes. They were the kind of rumors that could cause someone to be viciously, brutally attacked and even unalived, right? And this is before fire was set to my home. So whatever these rumors were, I know some of them were that I was promiscuous, where I was celibate. I have been now for 5 years. But there were rumors. Of course, I knew that because I was a spiritual person, and I know one of the individuals that befriended me at work, the guy that was attacking me, he practiced in the dark arts. His girlfriend practiced in the dark arts, and he also befriended me. So he knew that I was a loving person, and he knew that I was a very spiritual person. So one of those rumors was that I did witchcraft, which was a fucking lie, right? So I'm looking at my house covered in these birds, and I'm thinking, if I was any of the neighbors that would see that, they would think what I would see if these birds were in a neighbor's house, that they dabble in the dark arts. So it's like these lies were being told on me, and then they were using divination to make the lies seem real, right? So it just, when I saw it, I mean, what could I do? I shook my head and I went inside. Now, I was under so much stress that I really couldn't take anymore. But looking at it now, and if anything like that was to ever happen again, like, I did have more power than I realized, because I had the love of God all around me, and the protection and of angels, of my ancestors and guides, and the Holy Spirit. So, at the time, where I took that, I should have seen that as a warning that these birds were messengers, and I should have been praying. I should have gone in and lit a candle and started praying. I should have been praying every night and every morning and every moment, praying to cover my house, praying to cover my vessel, praying to cover everything that I love. I should have been protecting myself with prayer. But I wasn't. I was in survival mode. And now survival mode is prayer, is God. But back then, I was trying to get up for work every day. I was, going through PTSD. I sometimes I would just start shaking in terror of going into the building, because I didn't know what was going to happen to me that day. The things that were being done to me were illegal. And if I spoke up about it, it went to ethics. It was being investigated. but the retaliation in part, I think, was the fire, because the fire happened right after the investigation closed, where it did go to ethics and there was an open investigation, but they were warned about it, so everybody backed off. And then right around the time that the investigation stopped is where my house burned down. But like, you know, I I didn't think back then about, I saw what was being done, but I was so drained. I was so broken. I didn't have, I was just zombieing my way through every single day. And, you know, just going through the motions. So, and I also didn't have the knowledge at that time that I had. It was just really, God carried me through every single moment, because so many things were being done to discredit me, and there was no help. Like, it was coming from everywhere. I mean, they were messing with my money. I was out sick. There was some connection with the doctor's office because they weren't filling out my paperwork. So, you know, even after the fire, I was out for over a year, and they did not pay me, even though I paid for insurance. It came out of my check, and I worked with the company for 8 years, you know, and now I'm really sick and I'm supposed to be getting some kind of income from the insurance that I pay for, and they were blocking it, which they had done plenty of times before. But this time I just couldn't fight it. And I was very ill. And so it was everything. They were trying to put me in poverty. And to this day, I'm still trying to regain my footing, but I don't give a fuck. That's what's different. I'm not afraid, because I know that should I go to poverty, right? I live in the world that God created. And wherever I need to be is where I will be to learn what I need to learn. And when it is time for me to go home, He will take me home. This life is not the reality. This is a life for lessons, for spiritual growth. And, you know, these people, it's just a cowardice thing to do. And I'm going to speak about it, and passionately, because already every single day that I wake up is, not only did God create me, and I every day is a blessing, but I now know the lengths that were taken and the viciousness that was done to take my life away on several occasions, again and again and again, to take my credibility, to take my name, to take the respect that I had for others, the way others viewed me. Most people, some people would have unalived themselves if they did not know their Creator. And I don't think about, woe is me, what was done to me, because look, what was done to me brought me to who I am. I see clearly, and it took horrific things being done to me, being drugged through friggin' hell. But only God can take tragedy and torment and turn it into a gift and a blessing. And like I said, I know that in a way that I never knew it before. Although I said it with belief and with faith, I never knew it until going through it. There is no way to express the gratitude behind that. And so every single day, no matter what I go through, even when it's hard, even when I cry about it, because don't think I'm just jumping off the roof happy all the time. No, it's a struggle still. But I always come back to knowing not only that fire, but somebody trying to break into my home. I mean, I could go on and on. The level, the amount of the witchcraft that was being done to me, the abuse that I was going through, all of the things that I survived, I would have gone home to my King Jesus dozens of times over if these people were in control. And when I go home, I want to go home with pride. I want to know I made them proud. That I keep going and that I keep my faith no matter what, because I know what I know, and I had the faith before I knew this. So the things that I believe aren't me just saying I'm a part of the spiritual team and spiritual warfare is real. And no, these are things I've experienced, and these are things I'm choosing to express because I'm aware that there are other people experiencing, and they don't know what's happening to them. And I want people to know to keep going and why. And I want to spend whatever time that I have here trying to share, and if I could stop this from happening to one person or just make them aware, it is worth it. Because when I went through this, I had no help. I realized there were spiritual things happening, and I even looked for spiritual help because I was afraid of tarot. I was surrounded by so much darkness at one point, and because I'm a medium, I recognized it, and I honestly didn't feel like God would be attached to tarot. So I felt like if I was to use tarot, I had a respect for things that I don't understand, for one. And I didn't want to open any doorways to any of the darkness that were surrounding me. But I also didn't know how to protect myself with prayer. I also didn't know that the reason that I was being drawn to tarot were my very guides and angels trying to reach out to me. The one time that I used tarot, I had a pack of cards that I would not use. And I went to spiritualists, and sometimes they helped with how I could do things to break, and I saw improvement, but there was also a bias that I noticed was happening. And this was a small town in Ocala, so there was only 2 places that I went to. And then I noticed there was a shift, and I also noticed that one of the places someone from work talked me into going there. I also knew that she smiled in my face, but she was a fucking bitch. She did not like me. And I also knew that the reader tried to warn me about it the first time I went there. There were a lot of things, man, a lot of things being revealed to me. But I had the cards, and when things were really bad one day, I pulled them out and I did pray. And I only asked, and I think even Spirit guided me what questions to ask, because I didn't even know. I was just lost. And I can't even tell you, I was a freaking zombie most of the time. Just a deer in headlights. Just needing help and having nowhere to go. Okay, and I took the cards out. And at this time, it was before there was slander and there was bullying, but it was isolated to the guy and his girlfriend that I knew were they were obsessed with the dark web and people being unalived, and they were very immature, and I had rumors that they dabbled in dark arts, and she put on her I am all hail Satin. So that tells me she felt comfortable on a level with expressing that within this corporation as well, which is just bone chilling, right? But this is before the supervisors and manager was actually attacking me when I was moved, which was out of the frying pan into the fire. At this time, it was just her and this guy, and I couldn't understand why they kept coming for me, and I kept trying to stay away, and every time I spoke up, it was I was being punished for it. When I tell you these people, man, they did a number on me. It was talk about retaliation. I mean, they really, it was if I spoke up about it, it was they were telling me, who do you think you are? We tell you when to speak. We tell you who to be. We tell you what to believe. It was I was being punished for thinking that I had rights, because they were telling me I have no rights. I could go on, and I wouldn't want it to be misconstrued as holding animosity, because I don't. I have forgiven them. because everything that I am today, I built me through the struggles that they made for me, right? The obstacles that they put in my way. But it's just to show, because I know that I'm not the only person this was done to. Okay, as they said at that job, it was just my turn, right? They took turns doing this to individuals. It's sick. But anyway, so I had these tarot cards, and I thought of two questions, right? And I think I didn't know what I was doing. I think Spirit guided me to ask these questions because they weren't the way that I would word things. So it was very weird, the questions that I asked. But I asked about these two individuals that started the whole slander and the stalking and the harassment. It started with them, right? So I asked, how do they see me? And the privileged woman came up, I believe, like the Nine of Pentacles, I believe it was. And it was like the privileged woman and another, I think the Star card, right? And then I asked, what is it that they want for me? And on that particular card deck, the Tower card had the burning tower with flames and people leaping out of the building. And it was the burning tower. When I asked, what is it that they want for me? It was the burning tower and the oppression card, the Five of Pentacles. And this is after having, had that premonition of the fire and seeing it being shown to me that the person that raised me was a prime person in that. I didn't understand it. I was trying to understand the premonition, but it was clear in my face and I couldn't see it. But that individual was in contact with the individual at work. They were in communication. So there I was able to actually see the connection between what the tarot said to me and what the vision showed me of the fire that night. So, with the birds also, I just wanted to show, with the crows covering my home, also with perception and how I myself, like seeing that if I was looking at someone else's home, I would think that that person was into some real dark shit, and I would have thought that. I'm being completely honest. But I know that I wasn't, and I know what I was going through, and I know what was being done to me, and I know some of what was being said about me, which was that I was into really dark shit. And now here I go with my house being covered in crows. And I know now that they are messengers and that they were there to show me that there was a hex being put on my house. That does not mean that I had bad karma. It means that other people were trying to manipulate my karma. They were trying to curse me, to change my destiny. So it just shows, like, to be careful when you draw conclusions about people. Just as be careful when you draw conclusions about yourself, because there may be things about you that you don't even know. Like, for so many years, I knew that narcissists kept coming into my life. I knew traits of narcissists, and I didn't know that the main narcissist, the biggest one, was the one that raised me. There were things I didn't know about myself that I couldn't understand about myself before coming to that awareness. So it's never good to operate from a place of judgment. Always operate from a place of love, but love with boundaries, of course, but a place of love, a place of understanding. a place of compassion, because it is for God to judge, because it is God that sees and knows all things. And we can end up creating negative karma for ourselves just because we think that we have all of the puzzles, the keys to the puzzle, that we are drawing a conclusion on an individual. We're maybe going with the crowd that is abusing one person, and so we think everybody can't be wrong, right? These rumors have to be true, but you never stopped and talked to that person. The person says good morning and you damn near bulldoze them over, when they don't even so much as know your name. I mean, we need to step out of the arrogance and remember that we are not God, and we are not all-knowing, and we are not seeing. And even the seers, it's a gift and a privilege. And even when you see, you don't know. And the only thing that we can do to protect ourselves is to search within, with the intent to heal our trauma, with the intent to embrace and grow closer to become our highest self, and outwardly to try every day to see and view the world from a place of compassion and understanding and love with boundaries. Because those boundaries are for your own protection, because there are monsters out there. There are people that are just complete empty vessels that have given up their soul and that have made choices with their free will to do such horror to other individuals that they no longer carry the spiritual protection it would need to be able to even see themselves from an objective standpoint, to see the horror that they are inflicting on others. They are walking empty vessels. They are vessels filled with low vibrational entities at that point, a shell of a person that never healed, a person that was filled with trauma and decided to inflict the same trauma onto as many people as they could. Decided to judge like they were God. Decided to play God in other people's lives, to the point where they couldn't even see that it was to their own detriment. At some point, that's just how it goes. So back to when I came to the realization that everyone, around had done these things, and that I needed to pour all that love that I was pouring into all these people that did not deserve it. I now had the responsibility to myself to redirect all that love, inward, and move with the intent to heal. And I did that. And like I said, it was the best choice in my life that I have ever made. And I'm still on that journey, and I will stay on that journey for the rest of my life. Into the next, if I'm lucky to come back. I don't even know. I'm not even sure if I'd want to come back, to be honest, but I don't know. I'll leave that to my higher self. But yeah, so identifying triggers and where I started on my healing journey, I'm going to just give a couple of things that I did in the very beginning. So when I mentioned about identifying triggers and addictions, this is going to be the first time that you can really probably hear somebody say this sentence beginning with the good thing about addictions, right? But I'm going to say it. The good thing about addictions, when you've made the decision to heal and to take the course of self-love, is that where many people might not know where to start. When you have addictions, you know exactly where to start. So for me, excuse me, alcohol wasn't exactly an addiction, but it was definitely something that I abused when I was in a much lower vibration, probably to self medicate because of a lot of the things that were happening. And I didn't understand how I was only hurting myself more on a spiritual level, right? But at this point, I wasn't drinking a lot. I honestly had turned away from it in the beginning, since late 20s, early 30s, early to mid 30s. I still drank, but it wasn't in excess. It wasn't as abusive of a habit as it was in my 20s. But I realized that, especially because of what was happening at work, like I would come home and it was habitual for like a period of 6 months where I came home and I would have like a glass of wine, sometimes two, before I went to bed. And it was just my way of just kind of unwinding, right? But the main thing was, it wasn't that I didn't put the pressure on myself to say I'm never going to have another drink again. But I did say, in the last 10 years of my life, I don't think I can say that I went 1 year or 6 months without having even a glass of wine, without having gone out for a weekend, with friends or acquaintances and had a couple of drinks. So that's not excessive, right? But I didn't like the fact that I didn't give my body a break. It was more for the break. It wasn't for, like I said, at this time I wasn't drinking a lot, but maybe I had a drink or two every month, right? Like it was still not giving my body that break. So when I decided to heal, I said the first thing was that I wanted my body to be clean. I wanted to detox, and I was also a smoker. So I decided that I was going the boost, the quickest way that I knew to start would be to try to detox my body and to quit smoking and quit drinking. And I said, I'm just going to give it like a 6-month window. Like, I'm not going to say never again. I'm just, because that sometimes can put a lot of pressure on you too. And I just said, this is for my healing journey. This is for like a way to like boost, to like quicken that, right? First thing you want to do is you've got a habit. That's a tell right there. It's a blueprint to your healing. So I stopped drinking. I stopped smoking. I only within like weeks of that. I also did little things like I loved yoga, but I wasn't doing it regularly, and because of the health issues I had also, like it caused a lot of fatigue. Now yoga is phenomenal for preventative, as far as like the stress and stuff, to prevent the weakness and the fatigue that I was having. But because of the illness, like stress on my body would cause it. So sometimes the yoga was a lot on my body. So it was like I had to get that under control before I could do yoga. Anyway, so my point is, I wasn't doing yoga much at the time, but I quit drinking, quit smoking. And one of the things I did to help me with not smoking was it goes back, it's kind of like a psychological thing, like with that, I guess you could say, perception. But I said, okay, well, with smoking, I'm taking from my lungs, right? So now I'm on this journey that I'm not going to smoke. And I knew that I knew how beneficial breathing exercises are to the body, the mind, the spirit. I knew that from yoga. So even though I wasn't doing yoga, I still wanted to do the breathing exercises. However, I wasn't doing those as much as I wanted to. Like I wanted to practice it daily. So I decided to replace my smoking with that practice. Whenever I had the urge to go outside and smoke a cigarette, I decided that I would sit there for 5 or 10 minutes and do breathing exercises. And I'm going to tell you, every single time I did, the urge went away. So that was one of the things that I did to help with that. With the alcohol, I didn't really need to do this, but bitters is something that's really good for the gut, and getting like all those acids and stuff that help with digestion and things like that. And what is that called? It tastes like licorice, which I never used to like the taste of, but now I love it, and I think it's because of the anise that it has in it. It's just like a lot of concentrated herbs, but it's really good. And I had these little shot bottles of it that I would have every once in a while. I didn't do this during this purge, but I'm trying to remember what the name of it is, because it is really good. Oh, I can't remember. Anyway, back to the topic. Sorry about that. So yeah, drinking, smoking, kick that. I was doing the breathing exercises. Okay, so I was doing this just for a few weeks, and then I felt like, okay, I'm ready for the next thing. What's the next thing I can do? And I decided to start tackling some fears that I might have had, that I knew was psychological, that was taking away from my joy in life, right? Because you don't want to just tackle any fear, because some fears are, they're there to preserve us for self-preservation. Some fears might be healthy to have depending on what it is, but then some, if something is just not, it's something that was drilled into your head, or because you were told you can't do something, or because you lack self-confidence. So a big one for me for that was swimming, and this was robbing me from my life, and I was very aware of it because I loved the water, and I can't even express how much I love the water, to the point where it was like a dagger every time I would be in water, and I felt like I wasn't experienced enough, and I was like worried that that I might not be able to swim. And I had all the skills to swim, but I wouldn't go into the deep end to do it because I wasn't around water a lot. So I didn't practice. And I had, with all the spell work, with everything that was drilled into my mind of you can't, you can't, you can't, it was that voice inside of me that even when I said I can, it was like, no, the fuck you can't, right? Screaming louder and louder, right? So now on this journey of healing and self-love, I knew, okay, I'm ready for the next step. This is going to be another boost, right? So I decided, you know what? I'm going to just take some swimming classes, because what is it that, where is that fear coming from? And I realized that it was confidence, right? The confidence that I could do it. And I said, well, what builds confidence? And I was like, skill builds confidence. So I hadn't had lessons since I was a kid. And, so I was just like, okay, why don't I go and get lessons in a setting where I know that I'll be safe? And do that. And so I did. I mean, I had relationships, I had boyfriends, and it was almost like they liked the idea that they saw the fear, and I even asked them because I trusted them, and I could tell that they didn't want to help me learn. Like, they wanted me to feel like I couldn't do it. They actually enjoyed that. Like, it felt like there was something over me that they had. When, the way that I would tell an individual, there's no reason that you can't do this. And if there was if, you know, I could do something to help, I would, right? But nobody ever gave me that. I was giving it to others, but it was never given to me, right? So this was how to combat that. I decided to go and take some lessons. And I honestly, it didn't take much because it really was confidence that I was lacking. And a few pointers, a few skill pointers, but really confidence and now practice, you know, now it's just a matter of practicing so that, you know, my muscles just get kind of acquainted with it. But oh my goodness, like another thing, I thought I would be, because I'm claustrophobic, or maybe I felt claustrophobic as a result or a symptom of the spell work. But I felt like, especially being a smoker, that, you know, going underwater, I would not have much time before, like, I would need to breathe, and like there would be a panic. I don't know. I never could have known this, but like going underwater is one of my favorite things to do in life. It's like the most peaceful place. It's like, this is gonna sound weird. It's like I almost forget I have to breathe, but not in a dangerous way. It's like every muscle in my body relaxes, and every thought in my mind just fades away. And the water is just so peaceful. It's like I'm so calm that I don't even need to take a breath as quickly as I thought that I would. Like if I hold my breath sitting here, I won't be able to hold my breath as long as I can when I'm actually under the water, which is bizarre to me, but it was such a gift. It was so rewarding. So I was taking these lessons for, I mean, just like a couple of weeks, maybe a month total. Like I went a couple of times a week. But this happened really quickly because, like I said, I think I started in, let me see, last year was 2023. I think I started in like July of 2022. The fire happened in 2021, in June of 2021. So like I said, I walked around in a daze for like a year until that realization came to me and I decided to go on this self-healing journey. And so say I started in like June or July of 2022, within the first few weeks of not drinking or smoking, then I decided to do the swimming, to try and tackle a fear that I knew was a silly fear, right? And one that was robbing me of joy. So that I decided to tackle that with lessons. And by August, right, I think I took the lessons into, well, even when the lessons were up, I was still going to the Y to like swim and stuff until I think October. But I started in July, I want to say, the lessons, like nearing the end of July. I was only doing it for a few weeks. In August, I mean, the joy that I had, right? And then I felt different. And I stayed with it for a while, just kept going through the motions. I noticed I felt happier. And of course, what other things that I did, I was doing affirmations. I was doing, I didn't start shadow work until that October, but this was actually shadow work. I just wasn't aware of it. So I didn't intentionally start shadow work until October, where I was more like going within and doing all that. That's a whole nother thing. But yeah, I'm just, my point of sharing this is just to give people that want to do this, want to go on this healing journey, and they may not know where to begin. I wanted to make a point to say that any addictions that you have, anything that you have, it doesn't even have to be like an actual addiction, like anything that you have about yourself that you don't like, that bothers you, or that you feel like if you were to stop it, it would make you healthier mentally, physically, emotionally, right? That's your key, that's your tell, it's your blueprint. It's the first time that something that you don't like about yourself can be a gift to boosting your healing journey, because it shows you where to start. And by identifying what said thing is, you are going within. So I just want to show people like what I did as like just a way to start. And because maybe people might think that it's very complicated, and it is hard work, but the thing is, when you start and you're just going day by day, and you're moving with this intent, right? And the hard work, it's not all hard. Like, it's actually so rewarding that you don't even realize the struggle. Now, when you get some triggers and then you have to like face those and go, it may be a little bit harder, but the initial, like the beginning to the journey, it isn't hard at all, and it doesn't take at all long to raise your vibration either, especially if you're someone that's been operating from a lower vibration, and you're willing to recognize that. Because, with me, drinking, smoking, it was hurting my body, and it did bother me. I wasn't happy about doing these things. There were times that I cut back. I didn't stop completely and look at it logically and say, why don't you just give your body a break for 6 months and start there, until deciding to do this awakenings to do this healing. But yeah, so that's just a place that you can start, and the reason I wanted to point this out is because, like I said, this was only about a month in, like weeks, maybe 4 to 6 weeks in. But honestly, I think even like 2 to 3, I noticed a difference in my happidness. And then I want to say like 4 to 6, obviously the time will be different for everybody. But what I'm trying to get at is that my vibration rose, and I felt it, even though I didn't know what it was. But I knew my body was the cleanest it had ever been. I went through fasting. I had cut out the toxic habits that I had that was poisoning my body. And the fasting also helps to like reset, and it's spiritually building as well as physically healing, and mentally it gives you clarity. That brain fog just kind of goes. So like fasting is really good too. And then when I was eating, I was being a lot more mindful about what I was eating and things that were going to nourish my body. So my body was the cleanest that it had been really in years, maybe ever. And minus when I was a child. But I started to feel high. I started to feel I like a euphoria. And I've heard other readers describe it like the trees, are greener, and you look at the motion of which they sway, but like it was like a euphoria. It was like a high, and I was like, well, I know that I've been completely like cleaner than I've been, so I'm not high. And at first I didn't understand really what was happening. And I even tried to talk to an ex of mine that was still in my life as a friend. I tried to mention to him because I didn't understand what it was. And he said something kind of belittling. It was almost like he thought that I was trying to say that I was enlightened or something. And it wasn't what I was trying to say at all. Like I just said I feel different. But I think in the way that I said it, he interpreted it that way, and he took it kind of as a threat. And his first response was to say something belittling to me, to like almost mock me, like, oh, you think that you're like awakened, you're like so stupid, or something like, he said, I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was taking a shot at me, right? And I legit like sincerely, I was trying to have someone to talk about what I was experiencing because I didn't know what it was. I had no idea. Like, I heard about, different frequencies and, raising your vibration. I had no freaking clue that you could actually feel your vibration higher, like raised, and that it would feel so beautiful, like a dream, like you're actually in a dream, like without being high at all. Like, I nobody could have told me that, right? And even to this point, I still don't think that I've reached the level anywhere near what you can get, because I have reached different levels. For the last year since that happened, that led into my awakening to what that was and so many other things. But that was the start, and I felt the shift, and I was trying to understand, why do I feel different? And it was a good different, but I was not understanding what was happening. So I was like legit, like sincerely trying to like get answers, and I had no idea there was even a tarot community. That's a whole nother thing. On YouTube. I never knew, because I reached out to readers, and like I said, there was always like some kind of bias, and I could tell that there were things that they weren't telling me. And then I started to suspect that I could do what they were doing, but I didn't. There was just knowledge I didn't have. There were things that were said also that made me know that they were seeing things, so that's like a whole other story too. But I had no idea there was a tarot community on YouTube. What happened was because I always look for signs, and I believe in signs and synchronicities, and I had started doing affirmations like from years before. And when I was in the fog, that haze, like a notification just popped up on my phone one day. And it was like one of those like YouTube videos where it's like God is speaking to you, or the angels are saying. And I never searched anything like that. It just popped up. And so I thought it was a sign. And then I would get excited. Like, I kept getting notifications like that. I don't know how it got in my feed. I hadn't looked anything up like it. And I had only done like affirmations. I used to sleep to like some of the chakra healing stuff, and like affirmation stuff to kind of trigger my subconscious. That's something I also wanted to talk about. Let me just write that really quick, because I'm gonna just do that on another video. This is pretty long, but yeah, so I got like your angels are saying, and like those videos, and I started to watch them. This is that year after the fire where I was just in a haze. I was just like a walking shell, like a zombie, just deer in headlights, right? And that popped up, and so I started to feel like it was my guides that were like connecting with me. And the messages that started to pop up were coinciding with things that were happening to me. Like, I would get a warning that somebody was going to be attacking me, and it was energetic, and that I should be wary of how I react. And then I would have something happen. I mean, there were just, honestly, like I said, everybody's journey is their own, and your relationship with God is a very intimate relationship that no one else will understand. But nobody can tell me that this was not a message from the heavens that was coming to me. Like, my angels were communicating with me this way, and I got so excited every time I would get one of these notifications. And then the more that I got excited, and the more that I would look them, like read them whenever they popped up. I never searched for them. I'd wait for them to just be a notification on my phone. And the more that I did was the more that I started to notice like signs and synchronicities and things exactly directly happening to what these messages were telling me, which was just more of a confirmation for me. And ironically enough, like I did that for the whole year. So once I started to go on this self-love and healing journey, and I cut out these toxins, and then I the smoking, the drinking, and then the swimming, and then I started to notice this, like I told you, this euphoria, and I didn't know it was happening. It was around that time, because this was around like August, it was September of like 2022, when all of a sudden the notifications that I was getting changed from those "your angels are saying to you." One day I got a tarot message popped up, and the tarot message was talking to me, and there is no one on God's green earth that could tell me different, because it was telling me things that I thought, it was telling me things that I myself saw that I doubted because I didn't know I was a seer. There were a lot of things that were being shown to me, and I naturally second guessed them. Now, I always knew I was intuitive, but because I was so disrespected and taught not to trust my instincts, I silently trusted my instincts, but there was a lot of times that I second guessed my instincts subconsciously. It was because this was something that, and that's another thing with the subconscious that I want to talk about, but there on a subconscious level, a very unaware level, sometimes I did ride things off because I didn't know that I was gifted. I didn't know that I was a seer. I knew I was intuitive, but I didn't think of it like, again, perception. I didn't think of these thoughts as my guides actually speaking to me and telling me things that were actually so, right? So I had certain things that came to me, things I saw, but I thought, whoa, where'd that come from? Because again, it wasn't my own. I could tell when the thought was not the way that I would normally think. So I would be like, oh, you're panicking, you're in anxiety, why are you thinking negatively? And I would write it off as me being negative, because especially if it was something bad that was meant to be a warning. And so when I saw this tarot message, the first one that popped up, it was telling me some of those warning messages that I saw. This person was telling me things that occurred, and now they were telling me things that I knew occurred, and then they were telling me things that I saw in my mind but wrote off as me like overthinking. But then they were telling me this. They were also telling me things that, because some of it was past and some of it was present and then some of it was future, but it was near future. And Spirit did this to show me that like I wasn't crazy. I also think Spirit did this, waited until I was healing to communicate with me this way, because so I would know that I wasn't crazy, because my body was clean, my mind was clean, I was the healthiest I had been in years. So I was of sound mind. When these messages started to come to me and the way that I was processing, I knew that it was real. And it was then that I heard, I never thought of clairvoyance, but then the same message is telling me all of this, and then it's telling me that I'm profoundly clairvoyant, and I looked up clairvoyance because I realized I never really knew what the definition of that word was. And then there was no question about it. I had no idea that there was a word for what I had been experiencing my whole life. And if I had, things would have been a lot different for me as far as even trusting myself. Now, I had heard of clairvoyance without knowing the definition, but I had never heard of like clairaudience and those kinds of stuff. So I also think the clairaudience is definitely a thing, because it's that thing that I talk about, the voice, or Holy Spirit said to me, or I was guided to, for me, I don't know about anybody else, but for me, it comes as a thought. Now, I do believe that there are some that are gifted to the level of hearing it as clear as my voice, right, is on this recording. I absolutely believe that. But the way that I hear it is as a thought. But the thing is that the thought is as clear as my voice as I'm recording. It's sharp. And the only way I can describe this is that when you know something in the spirit, you just know. There is no doubting it. And I think the reason for that is because that the spirit is the true reality, right? We are here in avatars on this world to have a human experience, but we are energy, we are spirits having a human experience, right? So anything that you witness or experience in spirit is the true reality. And the only way that I can describe it is that, that way, that it is where everything begins and everything ends. So it is the reality beyond what we see as humans, reality within our senses, smell, taste, touch, sight, sound. Those are like our senses depict our reality here on earth. But when you know something in spirit, it's a reality beyond anything that the flesh can sense. And so there is no doubting it. And that's the best way that I can describe that. And that's the reasoning, or one of the reasons behind why it is so important to trust your inner voice. Where do these sayings come from? When we're children and they depict the heaven, the angel and the devil on the shoulder, right? Everybody remembers that animation with it's the voice in one ear and in the other, the good, the evil, right? Just the way I was talking about entity attachments and how I wanted to throw the door open when I believed that the entity that girl that was carrying shifted onto me, and I became very angry, and I had a choice to act in aggression or to remember my peace, myself, and use my free will to say, no matter how I feel, I'm not going to behave this way, right? That's a choice. And so, yeah, it's there, I think that a lot of people just write it off as delusion or like you're crazy. But when you really think about it, there is a lot of proof that comes from people from all walks of life, right? And it makes sense, right? So, so the best way that I can describe it is like when you know something in spirit, you just know. And that is why, going within some time in isolation to know yourself, to know your energy, purging your traumas, not being afraid of it, not being afraid of the feeling, asking God to carry you, guide you through it, right? That is so rewarding because it is making you more in touch, not only with God, but with your higher self, your best self, with you, with the perfect version of you, right? The spirit version of you, not the human version of you. And that's your guide. It's your inner guide. And you can't find that inner guide. You can't hear it. You can't feel it. You can't know it without taking that time for solitude to separate yourself from the world and do the self-work. This is why it's so rewarding. It builds your spirit, it builds your soul, it builds your mind, and it controls your world. Because now you are in control of your inner world, and whenever there is a shift, you identify that as your outer world and not you. And when you separate it, you can see it for what it is without becoming it, especially if it is of low vibration. You can put into action your God-given free will. Okay, because we are living and everybody thinks like, okay, we have free will, but when you're just going blind and you don't even know your own energy and you're not healing your trauma, you're just acting. Or I would say you're reacting to your outward environment. So you see that, like when you control your inner world, we've heard this, controlling your inner world controls your outer world, but I'm trying to express it in the way that I've understood it, in a way that I hope that maybe it will like enlighten or awaken, kind of broaden this perspective of others, or the perception of others, right? To kind of see it, and the best way that I can is to look at it energetically, which is kind of where I started the whole message. So there's so much. I don't know if I should just talk about the subconscious. All right. So let me see if I said everything right now that I wanted to about the just starting. If you're looking for a way to start that self-love and that healing, there is something I'm missing that I wanted to say about the self-love. Even when, early on this journey, when I said I quit smoking, I quit drinking, and it was about like a month or two, and then I was doing the swimming. Well, I went to the beach one day. We went out to I think Flagler, like Daytona area, and with a friend and his friend, my ex and his friend. And it was a beautiful day, and it was my ex, his friend, and his son, right? And it was a beautiful day, and he had some beers. We did have some beers on the beach, and even though I don't really drink beer, but then we went, there was a wine and cheese place that was on the beach, and we went there and we had some, drinks, and it was a beautiful day. I didn't drink a lot, but I did beat myself up about it because I was in my healing journey and I felt like I had just ruined it, right? And I took this beautiful day and this experience and I started to rob myself of it because I was so angry at myself for having drank. And then of course I had some cigarettes too, because I was very young in this journey, right? And I said I wanted 6 months. So I felt like I just ruined this a month in. But I caught myself and I said, look at the changes that you've made and how you've already seen the progress, right? And I said, it was a beautiful day, and do you regret having this day on the beach? Do you enjoyed yourself? You didn't overdo it either. In the past, maybe you would have drank a lot more. Maybe you would have smoked a lot more. You did not. And I looked at it that way and I said, no, it was a beautiful day. I was enjoying myself. And I also looked at it that you cut yourself some slack, right? You just started, you're about a month in, and then you're around alcohol and in an environment where that social environment where you normally would smoke or drink, right? And this is this journey, you're very young on it. So it would be best not to put yourself in situations that is going to, trigger you to do these things. So I recognized the trigger there, right? And I said, had we said we were going to go to, they invited me to go to a bar or something, the red flag would have went up and I'd have been like, no, you know what? I'm not drinking right now. So I'm not even going to put myself in the setting because it's only been weeks, But because it was the beach, and it was a beautiful day, I decided to go. And I was very happy that I went. And yes, it was in my face. And yes, I made the choice to do that and indulge, to just be what I was used to and enjoy the day. It was not anything to beat myself up about, and it was not anything to regret. It was something to recognize, and to recognize why I was triggered to do this, but I was not in a setting that was a terrible setting. It was a beautiful summer day, right? And to also reward myself for knowing that had it been a bar that we were planning to, I would have said no, right? But seeing how it snuck up on me and how I was triggered to do it and why I gave in, and allowing myself to process that, and this is just a small example, right? Because initially I got really hard on myself. I was upset because I was doing so good, right? So I had this mind that I was like, I was doing so well, and then I did this, and why did I have to drink, and why did I have to smoke? And it was almost like I just like wrote off the whole thing, like all my progress. And then I was like, wait a minute, part of this journey is self-love. Look at this for what it really is. And this was a beautiful day. Do you regret going to the beach? Do you regret having this day? No, absolutely not. I enjoyed the day. If anything, it was even more nourishing and rewarding for the journey that I was on, minus that I was triggered because of it being right around me and the social environment. I was triggered to have a couple of drinks and smoke, and it wasn't a big deal. It was just that it was at that time that where I said, I want to give my body that break. But you know, that self-love, I let myself off the hook for it, and I welcomed that experience as it was a gift. And also the recognition of why the trigger was there, and how well I had done, and how well I was doing, and how well I was going to continue to do, especially now that I came to this realization. If anything, this was going to help me moving forward. And when I did that, it was around that time, shortly after, that I started to feel my vibration go up. So it was that self-love. It wasn't just the fact that my body was clean. It wasn't just the fact that I was so happy from swimming and I was actually getting good exercise doing that. When I felt that vibration go up, it was the self-love in addition to everything else. When I let myself off the hook, I guarantee, I am sure of it. I believe that in my heart. It was the self-love, because it was shortly, I mean, maybe days, maybe a week after that, where I noticed that my vibration had went up, and I said that I felt different. And it was maybe nearing a month after, or 3 weeks after that, where I found out that it was actually that change that I was feeling was the fact that my vibration raised. Because then I started to learn more, watch tarot, and do different research on my own, because now I had a direction for research to kind of draw my own conclusions, and to go to spirit to guide me through learning. And so that was self-love right there, where I recognized what I did. I graciously decided to sit in gratitude for having that beautiful day at the beach, and forgive myself for slipping a little bit when I've been doing great, because it wasn't a slip. It was something that triggered me, and I was able to face it and see why, and let myself off the hook, knowing that I was going to continue not smoking, not drinking on my healing journey. Nothing had changed. I wasn't, whoa, now I'm off the wagon, so let me start doing this every day. It was when I embraced it from a place of understanding, from a place of love, for compassion for myself and my choices, and I allowed that. It took the weight off of me, and I realized that nothing was lost. If anything, there was something gained, because I was able to identify that trigger and love myself enough to know that, that experience was something to be in gratitude for. So I am going to end it there because I'm very worn out. I'm very tired. I really hope that in if anybody's listened this far, I hope that there is something that you have been able to grasp from this for yourself, to nurture yourself, to help yourself on your journey, to help yourself to identify with who you are. Not as opposed to, but like separate from the world around you, and how you can build on that and practice on that, um, to energetically separate yourself from lower vibrational things that will naturally happen, that's going to come with self-love. I just hope whatever you get, I hope that there's something of value, that anyone listening this far, that you could reach something of value. And if anyone who has listened this far, I graciously thank you, because that means a lot to me. And doing this, speaking, I mean, this is all very rewarding to me, and it's healing me as I do this. And the only thing that I could ask for is to have it heal someone else. That would be a dream come true. So that is what I'm hoping for, and that's why I'm going to continue to do this. And I feel really great now. So just thank you, and I love you. And let's all start to look at our triggers as a blueprint, to our own healing journey, and start working at changing our perception. Because that is a key to healing trauma. Okay. Love you. Thank you. Bye.